approaching some Jira administration, but I have a great respect for the people that actually do the real back-end Jira administration, Confluence administration. So part of what I'm trying to get to here is helping you to help teams provide a single source of truth, to provide information that's necessary through the whole program, so that you can share how you did your plan, why you're working on certain work, and how you got there. Not everyone here obviously is a Scrum Master, not everyone here is talking about this at that level, but you can go back to your groups and explain it in similar terms if you think of it in terms of the modularization. So presumably each team or group has a space, and you should be using that parent-child relationship for those spaces. Don't let people just go willy-nilly setting up spaces. If you allow your product team to use that parent-child relationship, you can keep your hierarchy pretty tight. Give your teams freedom. Confluence is built for freedom, but give them requirements. Make sure they understand that there are certain things that need to be in place for this to be usable. Like templates for meetings. Encourage that work, because if you use templates for meetings, you can use this model that I'm going to show you very easily. And that's creating a page for each sprint. Sprint pages should be named properly. Make sure that they follow whatever sprint naming convention you use. Not everyone's using Scaled Agile, but if you are, for instance, you're going to name it according to the PI, program increment, and then the sprint within that. Or if it's just a series of numbers, if you're on sprint 742, make sure that you're talking about sprint 742 for that team. You can make each of these pages a child of the sprint page's home, which will be a child of your team's home. And that way people can find this information easily. You can use this if you want to do excerpts. You can build up from excerpts by using this model. Make sure that each of the pages are divided into categories of information, which you'll see in a second, are pretty standard for each planning session. Make it known that this is a work in progress, of course, until it isn't. If you're doing a planning process, the planning process will give you the information as it's available. If you're just planning the sprint, you don't have your retrospective yet because you're not done with that sprint. But this sprint page will include all that information at the end. The goal here is for synchronous as well as asynchronous communication. You want to, in your meeting, have it set up so it's clear what that meeting is meant to do, know what artifacts have to come out of that meeting, and provide them in that single source of truth. So you can include the agenda, make it collapsible so it disappears after you don't need that anymore. Same thing with velocity and capacity calculations. You can put them all right in that page. Make it collapsible if you want. Include sprint goals. Make those visible, because when you eventually want to present what your goals were and how you did against those goals, you want to show a certain key to say done, in progress, not done. You can use that dynamic linking for attributing to-do items or specific stories or specific goals or a specific demo to a specific person. And make sure you link to the Jira board and any reports that are necessary. So they have one, like I said, single source of truth for that sprint. What's interesting to anybody, whether it's CEO, product owner, QA, anybody on that one page, they can just go there. Again, I talked about demos, and then you can add a retro section on the page if you do very simple wins, challenges, how can we improve, shout outs. Those can all be on this page, or if you want to do much more in-depth retrospectives, just have it be a child of this page. So the retrospective is directly linked to the work that you did for the planning. And then encourage adoption across the organization so that when people go to look at these pages, it's pretty standard. They know what they're looking for. They can look on the page for that bit of information. It's not brand new each time they come to each one of these pages. If nobody's using these sprint pages, no one's going to understand why they would work. That one person who is going to say, I'm not the outlier, I swear this really works. And once you get more adoption from team to team, it will show up more in the demos. When you see 3, 4, 5 teams showing demos from this sprint page, all of a sudden it's easier for everyone to understand why it matters, why it works. You can talk to other Scrum Masters, other team members, show your higher-ups how it works. If you think this can work, you can sometimes convince higher-ups to say, hey, let's adopt this model. You can build a template and say, here's the template that I built. I think this will work, and then allow people to poke holes in it. Let them say, that doesn't work for us, but if you added this, I'd like it. Again, that consistency creates a safety net of process. So if everybody's going through and talking about what their goals are, then we know when they get to the demo, they're going to have to address those goals. And we can speak in terms of process. We don't have to speak in terms of people. We can let the process get us past any difficult discussions, because we say, this weird thing happened, we don't talk about who did it, but it's clear on this page why it happened. All the wins, same deal, the team won. And again, as always, humans before technology, we want to make sure that people understand that they're a part of this. Oh, sorry. Let's go out to the actual page. So let's just pretend that this hangs off of my team page, team toolbar. The sprint pages are all available here. This can go on for infinity. You can have it stored backwards if you want, so the most recent are at the top. But in essence, let me just show you a blank one first. Before any information is in here, I've got the team name, I've got the sprint clearly called out, and here's the agenda for the meeting. And everybody knows going into each planning meeting what is required of everybody in the meeting. Your sprint goals can be put in here after you do your planning session. Show how you broke down your capacity so that people understand why you decided to commit to that many stories. Obviously, I could only link to myself in here. I'm not going to link to actual other Rosetta Stone employees. But let's just say I was doing all these things and I'm 4 of myself. One of myself has 3 days off. One of myself has some spill. Account for each of those things. When you get into this sprint, you know what happened in the last sprint. And part of that can be part of your retrospective. And then you can show in context everything that happened as you went along. But let me show you how it works when you actually have some information in here. And also notice, you can create a handy dandy nav bar down here so people can bounce back and forth between the sprints. So again, you've got your agenda at the top. Everyone knows how the meeting happens. We've got, this is for a completed planning, this is for a completed sprint, right? So we went through everything that we needed to for our last sprint already. We talked about our capacity. Our capacity is broken out here. Here's our actual capacity that we're going to commit to. And you counted forward here. After the sprint, we got through 30 points. Great. Here's the plan. I obviously obscured the actual stories, but you can take a snapshot of what your JIRA board looked like for that sprint, what the actual sprint commit was. People can go and look at it. And then you talked about your goals after you did your planning session. And here's how you presented it to the rest of the organization. We had some features that worked out. This one got delayed because we had an environment problem. This one didn't work out because we had to talk to legal about it. But you have an example of what could block you. And all of it's called out here. Again, we don't have to attribute this to necessarily people, unless you have an actual to-do item, or if you want to do a demo, for instance. Let the people know they're going to be doing a demo when you get to that actual demo session. And you can call that out again down here if you want. Here, we've got a retrospective right at the bottom of the page. We went through the sprint, it went well, but as always, we need more QA, right? You can call out all these things and have the team participate and show them live what you're putting in here, so that you don't just look like you're typing away and it goes off into the ether. It's all available for them at the end of the sprint retrospective. Yeah, I got a shout out here because I evidently threw a great cupcake party, so congratulations to me, right? But another thing is you can attach anything you want. Just throw in the attachments macro here. That's how I added the screenshot here. But you can also attach all your demos directly to the page. People can go back and look at those videos, if you have videos, or PowerPoint, whatever you want to use. So just for comparison, that's the completed one. We've got one that's not quite complete because we only did the planning session, but we did not yet get to the retrospective because the sprint's not over. So we've got some goals, no status yet. When we go through the sprint and we're done, we'll be able to report on that. That's pretty much everything I had. Any questions? Yeah.
When you mentioned the parent-child relationship, are you just talking about the page tree within a space?
Yeah, within a space. Make sure people understand that, because this shouldn't be separate off in the ether, right? It should be directly connected to whatever team is doing their retro. Yeah.
When you spin up a team, how do you set up a spin? How do you set this up for them?
So being Scrum Master or Program Manager, it would generally be my responsibility at least to say, hey, do we have a volunteer to do this, or I'm going to do it for the team. I'm in Scaled Agile, if there's a pretty clear delineation of who's doing which work, but not every organization works that way. A lot of people wear different hats. It should, yeah.
Another one, actually. So when you make changes to this, you're getting feedback and you're making updates, how does that propagate across all the teams that are using
Well, so you're talking to the template, or?
I don't know, actually, I was trying to figure out because
Yeah.
Confluence is very loose.
Yeah,
I'm
so
trying to tighten it up.
so the way we tightened it up was just to have our Scrum Masters and program managers, project managers, and product owners all agree that this is a good format, and then to use this format going forward. And then we meet weekly as Scrum Masters anyway, as PMO, and we would say, hey, we think we need to make a tweak to this template. We found this one part's extraneous, we don't need to do that anymore. Instead, we started doing this. And that's exactly how we got to, that kind of conversation is exactly how we got to this idea, where people were making a list of all the tickets. They were trying to copy and paste every single ticket there. But that just, I mean, I have a team here that's we're working literally 80 points of work in one sprint. There's no way that I can copy every single story and then have it, be expedient in the meeting. So I just literally took a screenshot. And it saved us enough time that, again, when it's not obscured, you can actually look at all the stories, you can see who they're assigned to, you can see the epics they're associated with, you can actually count up all the points, you can sort so your bugs are not in there, you can include your bugs if you want. But this brings up all those topics because you're looking at these things together. For instance, does the team member have a time box for working on bugs? Does that have to have an epic? Well, you can see it all comparatively when you do it this way. Yes, sir.
Just wondering, like, some of the data that I saw there, because I'm looking at it, can't help it, but like, great opportunity to automatically pull some of that data. I'm wondering if you guys explored like the velocity and some of the things that really are just sort of available elsewhere, just need to figure out how to get it.
So to be honest, in this case, what we're talking about are very manual calculations, and that is actually by design because of the way at Rosetta Stone we currently account for stories. It could be dev complete, and that's really what the higher-ups care about. So we'll call it complete, and we have a separate Jira board that calls it complete when it gets to testing complete. Might not be in production. Maybe there's an environment problem. You can't actually send it to production, so they can't actually close the story. But for all intents and purposes, it's closed. It's not blocked. It's just not marked as done in Jira. So when you have those kinds of weirdnesses, you don't necessarily want to do all automated data. But I agree, it can be very useful in a more standard application of using Jira. And part of it was getting conversations started about, are we all using the same processes? Do we all agree on what one point is? This is helping us to get to that.
So in a sense, you sound like your position is like, if people want to know what's up with the spread.
That's right.
Okay.
And to prompt those conversations so that eventually everyone can be using Portfolio because we are standardizing our processes, because we are having that conversation about what one point means. Do you count bugs? That kind of thing.
Any more questions? Nice job. Oh, one more.
Keep on your feet. I noticed you had like a to-do for yourself. Have you experimented with Confluence tasks at all?
Yeah, that works well. And some people liked them, some people didn't, so we didn't put them in this template, but sure. I like using tasks. Yeah.
Any more questions? Nice job.